Okay, 48 hours in with the Galaxy S24 Ultra, and I'm heading back to the UK after being at the launch event here in San Jose. My impressions of the phone are very good. It's a really solid flagship. 48 hours, I've taken it around San Francisco, San Jose. I've also been using it as my primary device, WhatsApps, all of that stuff. I've played Genshin Impact, and I would love to keep this phone as my primary phone. My main caveat is the camera. I still don't love Samsung's processing, and that hasn't changed this time around. So I'll talk about all that in more detail, but before I do, if you're not already subscribed, please do. It's how you stay on top of everything I do. And also head over to stuff.tv, where you can see my 48-hour impressions and some photo samples with this phone taken in San Francisco. Right, so the design, the flatter sides, the kind of sharp corners, this feels like a very, very big phone. There's no getting around that. It's imposing in the hand, in the pocket, because it doesn't have rounded corners, it doesn't have a curved screen, it doesn't feel quite as kind of comfortable, I guess, to use. The S Pen's in exactly the same place, pops out really nicely. It's a big phone and it's relatively thick, though it does feel a little bit smaller than the S23 Ultra. The titanium frame, though, now has a matte feel, not the polished feel of the S23 Ultra, and I really do like it. It's much grippier, and the frosted back, I've got the grey version, I think looks very good. It doesn't attract fingerprints readily, but like I said, this is so big, and if you put this thing in a case, it's going to get even bigger. So make sure before you pick it up, you check it out in a store to make sure that it fits into your life and pocket and hand. The screen is beautiful. It climbs up to 2,600 nits peak brightness, and I didn't have any issues with viewing it outdoors in direct sunlight, but I don't know whether it's because it's a flat screen or Samsung's actually using a new advanced panel. It just feels, it looks very, very special. It's also coming down to the fact that Samsung's made the interface really clean. The typography they use in One UI 6.1, I don't know, it just feels really great. It looks great. Content will look great as well. If you're watching movies and stuff, because it's a flat screen, they're going to look that bit better. It's got smaller bezels than any other Samsung Ultra before it, and that largely is at the base of the screen. It hasn't got any chin, which the Galaxy S23 Ultra, if you look very closely, does have. So super immersive. Flat, I don't mind. I don't mind curved screens, I don't mind flat screens. I use so many phones that neither are deal breakers for me, but it's a quality panel. As far as performance goes, I've gained a fair bit on it. Genshin Impact 60 frames per second, and it does a really good job of getting through that without any drop frames from what I've seen, but it does get warm. Although first 48 hours, you can never really judge a phone's kind of heat management, but I really enjoyed gaming on the big flat screen. That definitely was another point that I really like over the curved screen, because everything's just facing you. Still have bottom firing speakers, so it isn't a clean sweep across the board. First day, my impression of the battery life wasn't incredible. Gaming and a lot of camera use drained it to the point where I really did struggle to make it through a day, but I'm sure that's going to change and even out. The more I use the phone, the more it gets used to my apps on board, syncs everything, etc. But performance so far obviously has been good. The one thing you're going to be waiting for is all the generative AI stuff. So recapping some Samsung smart features, you can record a meeting, which I did, and this is what blew my mind. It recorded a meeting, it transcribed it. The speaker had excellent English, but they had a very strong Korean accent, and it was able to identify 3 speakers, and then it summarized the meeting transcription into meeting notes. So that's really cool. The thing I didn't like so much was it tries to, you can change the tone of a message. So for example, if I write, "Hey, how are you doing?" I can change it to be more formal, more casual, etc. It got that way wrong for me. I'm a native English speaker. I really like having nuance in my messaging. That gave me a hashtag grateful for suggested social media tone. So just maybe needs to get to know you if it's going to be a language learning model. If it's not, and that's just how it's going to change what you write, then it's probably not something I will ever use, but it could be really handy for non-native speakers or for anyone who just wants a little bit of help with getting their language in the right tone. The imaging AI features, it can do things that Magic Eraser from the Google Pixel can do, for example, so delete objects and also move them around. But what I appreciated much more was the video editing, the AI video editing. If you're playing a video back, long pressing it increases the frame rate, so reduces the speed. So you get 3 frames generated for every frame. So it like squeezes 3 frames in between them, so 3 frames for every 1 frame. So you can play back video at quarter speed, and that's really impressive. It looks a little bit kind of like, when you see those TVs, and it's kind of like got, I think, an LG type super fluid look to it that looks almost artificial. It does like have that effect, but I still enjoy the fact it looks much better than quite a jerky like slow motion video from 30 frames per second down or up to 120. So appreciate what Samsung is doing. The other thing I use all the time, which I didn't expect I'd use, if you straighten out an image, it can actually do a really good job of filling in the area when you rotate it slightly that it would otherwise crop in on. So if you're taking an image with a super wide angle and you straighten it out, if it isn't quite straight, you don't need to crop in any further. You can retain that wide angle. And I found the generative AI stuff there to be very, very good. So like my first impressions really like the AI stuff is useful. And a lot of it, I think I'll integrate into my daily life if I keep using this phone, like circle search and the transcription feature. I think that if you don't have like a mastery of Photoshop and stuff like that, you may lean quite heavily on the AI imaging stuff too. I found that like as a phone, it looks really good, really premium, so there's no issues there. But I don't love the camera. I don't love the processing that Samsung applies. You can take really beautiful shots, don't get me wrong, but because Samsung applies such heavy processing, so it's like really crispy shots that are really nice and sharp and vibrant and crunchy. Like you can see, like post them straight to Instagram, and you probably won't need many or any filters. If you kind of want a camera like that, it could be perfect. But if you want a camera that can take photos in auto mode that you can then edit like crazy, it's probably not for you. The 5 times optical zoom isn't as powerful as the 10 times zoom on the S23 Ultra in good light at far-reaching objects. But when the lights drop, it performs better. And also, I found it's got a much more near focal distance. You may have seen the short that I posted. You can actually get some kind of telemacro type shots from this thing. You're not going to be able to do that in automatic mode, or it won't look necessarily the way I want it to look, and it'll oftentimes default to the 3x camera. But if you want to force a 5x camera into action, you can do so in manual mode, pro mode, and that's what I ended up doing a lot, and I was able to get shots that I was really, really happy with. Also in pro mode, you can shoot 50 megapixel photos, because the sensor's gone up from a 10 megapixel sensor that took 12 megapixel photos on the S23 Ultra to a 50 megapixel sensor. It's also 1.6 times larger than the tele sensor on the S23 Ultra. And so what you'll get is just better quality images. With a nearer focal distance, you have a wider aperture lens, you've got a better quality lens. It just has a much more pleasing quality to those 5x telephoto shots. And like I said, if you want something for product photography, don't mind dipping into manual mode, shooting raw, etc. I really appreciate the manual control that Samsung gives you. But if you love what your S23 Ultra already does, this does it just as well, if not better. Recapping the camera specs, primary 200 megapixel camera, no major changes there. 3 times zoom as well. It's a 12 megapixel camera, and the ultra wide is also 12 megapixels, and it can shoot 8K video as well as 60 frames per second 4K video. So first impressions, very solid. This is an expensive phone. The design, the features, the just polish of the interface justify that price, in my opinion. Is it a worthy upgrade over an S23 Ultra? Probably not, especially considering the S23 Ultra is going to be getting those AI smarts that Samsung's introducing on here. If you have an S22 Ultra, I still wouldn't say it's worth the upgrade if you are fine with your phone. Anything older though, and you'll really appreciate the performance boost, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, and this absolutely flies, and probably the imaging enhancements too. But all in all, I'm super impressed with the S24 Ultra. Any questions about the phone, fire them in the comments section, and I will be sure to address them in the full review, which I'll hopefully be posting next week. I'm especially going to focus on that camera and those AI features. So if you've got any burning questions on them, do let me know.